you are asked to go into a building, for example, go to Kisumu, the Prosperity House, and you are supposed to see an officer on the 8th floor, and there is no lift. And there are stairs as you get into the building. So the thing is, how inclusive are we, and what do we need to do to improve on that?
Okay, absolutely. Do we have laws, policies, or institutions that are supposed to be helping with this?
Yes.
So is this matter a policy issue, or is it a legal issue, or is it an institutional issue? Yes.
So when I came in, the lady who's sitting there was talking about Article 55 and Article 100. So Article 100 of the Constitution of Kenya talks about SIGs, special interest groups. And this is where this group falls in. So it basically talks about the promotion of representation of marginalized groups. So yeah, it's a legal issue, and it's also just, is it just a legal, or like, do you think it's?
Yeah, I think it's also policy. Basically, I think it borders all those aspects. Josiah, if my memory serves me right, those of us, the people who were in Kisumu, I think this was raised by the lady who touched on issues about disability. You remember?
Yes.
And the contentious discussion by that time was about what Ken just mentioned, about the exclusion of people living with disability on every sector of representation. And I think, therefore, in her proposal, and I think this is what was captured in this report,
yes,
she presumed that the discussion, the meeting by that time, would factor in matters that are concerning people living with disability,
yes,
and providing also for featuring the fact that the legal mechanism, like they mentioned about the National Council of People Living with Disability. I remember in that meeting, who there are a number of measures that are put in place, but they're not really active. They have not been actualized. So I think for me, and what Amy just talked about, it borders for the fact that it's a legal issue because it falls short of the coming through with the articles that she's mentioned. And secondly, I think it's also a policy issue because within the institution of National Council of People Living with Disability, the issue has not been fast-tracked within that institution as well. So I think I'm compelled to understand that it's an issue that borders both.
Do we have any other insight different from that? So this is clear. It's home. It's both institutional and it's legal aspect. Who are the duty bearers, and what are the possible approaches that we do need to undertake? Guys, I need us in this room to put our mind in the perspective of people with disability. Travel that journey with the people who are living with disability, okay? Maybe we don't have a representative of them in this room, but probably online there is one. So I need us to, for a moment, travel in that shoe and see yourself how you're supposed to go to 10th floor of Prosperity House in Kisumu, and there is a lift that is only being used by the government. Yet you need services, and probably you've procured the procurement by the procurement offices on the 10th floor. And you need to go and hand over your papers, and you have to go all the way to the 10th floor. You go to the lift and you're told that no, it's only VIP. And the VIP who is using that lift is an enabled man. But yet he doesn't go all the way to the stairs, all the way to level number 10. So how then do we have this matter sorted out? So it's not time for us to keep mum. Is it, who are the duty bearers and what approaches do we use? Yes, Ruth.
I think what Ken has raised has sort of sparked the realization that sometimes we could be ignorant, but not out of malice. I mean, how many times do you walk into a building and you don't think about it? How many times do you walk into a hospital? Do you, go to whatever function and you don't think about it? And the realization also that anyone could end up being a person living with disability. Not everybody who is living with disability is born like that. Situations happen, and so I do agree with you that we need to put ourselves in that situation because you really don't know about tomorrow. But speaking of on duty bearers, I feel like this is something that would work best if devolved into the county and making the representatives of the county assemblies the duty bearers, because I see, and I'll use Kisumu as an example, the same county that he used. There's a time they passed a bill or tried to spark the conversation whereby you should sit a particular way in a motorbike, right? And then we've had counties that have also passed bills of, in your malls, the toilets should be, the washrooms should be public and you shouldn't pay to use it. And these are things that now the of the residents in that county. Now, if we make it solely on the National Assembly, one, implementation might take too long. Two, the people in the counties, or rather the citizens and the constituents of those counties, might not necessarily own it, and they might not necessarily know the depth of this particular problem. So for me, I feel like we should concentrate more on the county assembly.
So the duty bearers in this case, we are taking this matter to the county assembly.
That would be my proposal.
Do we have any other opinion on this matter? Who do you think should be the duty bearer? Again, I implore members of this room to be in the position of a disabled individual, and you are in need of services that you're not able to get. Where would you go to? Who would be the person who would hold accountable?
Okay, maybe.
Guys, we need to, like, the reason why we were called to this room is so that we can have a conversation. Okay? So, you're doing a disservice to yourself, to your organization, to the youth constituency if you're in this room and you're not like grappling to get the microphone from you. Check it out.
So, okay, I'm thinking of the point he has raised of we have these institutions, the Council of Disability, such institutions, what is their mandate? Is it to fight maybe for the rights of the people with disability, or do they lobby for them, maybe to get services and equal services like other citizens? So I'm thinking such groups or such institutions should also be duty bearers, because it is a body that encompasses all these people with disability. It is their body, it should be like their lobby group to help them get these services and push for that equality sort of. So I think I can talk of those institutions as the duty bearers.
So that's what you want to say.
Okay, so I think first it will be NCPWD, National Council for Persons with Disability.
Yeah.
But in general, this is an interesting one because the Persons with Disability Act, I think 2013,
yes,
is very clear that all public offices should have provisions for inclusion. Therefore, that one technically makes that if we walk across the road to a corruption, not to a corruption, this guy is across the road, you need to have that they have provisions for persons with disability. If they don't have, then they are the people that are supposed to be targeted. And this leaves us with the range of offices that are not compliant.
yes.
But the person who needs to make them compliant is all of us. But now the duty bearer the list will be endless. But for now, we can have National Council for Persons with Disabilities.
I think the county government of Kisumu has been in office for quite a long time since they moved to the prosperity house. And I find it that no one has considered the fact that people need to get up to the 10th floor to get service. Ruthie, you disagree?
No, I don't disagree on something he said. I feel like we need to be very cognizant of the fact that in as much as we have all these bodies, they are not going to, they need that boost. And I'll give an example with the sports fraternity. They have all these bodies that are supposed to help them, put their acts together. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of gaps and there are a lot of loopholes that they face. So if these bodies like the ones they're mentioning can be supported by just a little bit of political goodwill across all the legislative houses, one, and two, if even us as citizens can actually put ourselves in the shoe of people living with disabilities and also try and really make some noise about it, then I feel that it could make some change somewhere. A lot of people may not have realized the issue of Kisumu County, for example. Many people to date, I'm sure even those who are not listening to it, don't even know about what he's saying about the public offices having that provision. So again, we need to really put ourselves in that as duty as across, because then if we don't support them, then there's no way, and this is just the reality. It's going to be very difficult for them to make any move. They will have strategy papers, they will have suggestions, they will have all these things, but they're not going to be implemented.
Okay, so if you're in this room and you do have a phone and you can tweet about some of these matters that are considered, do we have a hashtag that is rolling through? Please kindly share with us the hashtag so that then this conversation does not necessarily end in this space or the people online. It can go to Twitter, it can go to all the pages that we do have. Please kindly share about the social media status.
Yes, I wanted to add on to what
Ruth is.
Okay.
Yes. Or we wait a little bit. Okay. Yes. Roll it away.
Yes. For me, I'm thinking that one other duty bearer that we need to re-engage or rather go after is the judiciary, because I think in cases where the constitution or rather there is an act of parliament in place, then it is important. I think we have to find a way to pressure the judiciary or rather to approach it so that those matters can be addressed legally where the constitution has just been outrightly flouted. Yeah. Someone needs to take responsibility or be taken down. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So we have a duty bearer, judiciary, and we need to ask them why. Dan,
I thought you were speaking, but
for the microphone on your
I really don't buy into this idea that there must be a political goodwill. For it is important to have the support, and I agree with the lady that it is important to have a support to implement, some of these laws. Josiah, you are premised on an institution that is budgeted for, an institution that has received money from the exchequer, the national treasury, each and every year to implement, a function, including the functions that are given to you for the people living with disability.
Yes.
And the council that we've just mentioned here is one of them. The political parties in this house are one of the institutions, And I was just about to ask, how is the mechanism to make sure that people living with disability institutionalized within your political party? First, before we ask all people living in the national, council of people living with disability, I don't mind. And of course, we would be exonerated. We would not mind. How many of these institutions, are bequeathed with the responsibilities of passing laws and lobbying and even implementing on behalf of people living with disability? Because, we will come back here again. and asked, this was not done because there was no political goodwill. This was not begun because the lobbying was not done well. So, I digress a little bit from, from the function, from the mention of lobbying, of not fearful to mention these institutions, because I know we are coming back again here to say, we didn't list all these institutions, and therefore the Council of Disability is overwhelmed by the function that we were given to them. My thought, though.
Is there an issue that we are failing to tackle in this matter? Please kindly, the hashtag is Siasa na Vijana. Hashtag Siasa na Vijana. Please get a moment or two. Air out your thoughts online, Twitter, Facebook. Speak up your mind. Tell them that the issues that burn you the most time. Feel free to also tag that the debate guru. That is me. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any matter that is pending on this matter of disability? Yes. Dan, did you hold the microphone?
For me, I'm sort of looking at this from a different perspective. We're in a youth space right now, and we have young women, we have the youth, but when it comes to persons with disabilities, we forget that they're also young people who are differently abled. We usually cluster them as a whole, persons with disabilities. So that includes the elderly and whatnot. So how can we, when we're looking at the duty bearers, is there not really a body, but a network of young people living with disabilities that we can also include them in these conversations? Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And before, can I say something? We are having this conversation on the first floor.
Yes.
So like if there was someone who wanted to access this meeting, for example, and they wouldn't, we are locking them out deliberately, or there's a lift. Okay.
Are we locking them out?
I don't know. Were they invited? Was the invitation made?
Did we invite people living with disability?
I think if we can check ourselves, then we can begin there.
Ladies and gentlemen, when we went to Sumu, there was an institution that was called the National Youth Council. You remember? They received one of the biggest bashing that it can ever be. People were mad, people were not happy, they said all sort of things. I am corrected to say that they were not bashed, but they were concerned. They were concerned. But the matter is that people felt that we have an institution that is supposed to be representing the interests of the youth. But yet, from Mombasa to Kisumu to Nairobi to Homa Bay to Kajiado to Loitoktok, none of the members in the room could feel the presence of the National Youth Council, or even the impact. Therefore, one of the things that was represented or said was that there has to be something to be with this institution. So, what did they say about it? They said that the Youth Council needs to be effective. They felt that it's not an effective institution at all. They don't know it. Probably it's an animal in Nairobi. Ladies, do you have anything that you feel should be done with the National Youth Council? Is it a matter of policy? Is it a matter of law? Or it's a matter of that institution itself not performing or undertaking its mandate to matters pertaining to the youth? The reason why I'm asking that question like that is because I am representing the feeling of the room that was in Kisumu during the forum. And it was so bad that they did not feel that they are doing anything. So if I bring that feeling in from the room, then I find it in the report, and where they say that it needs to increase its effectiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, do you feel that there has to be something that needs to be done? And if it's to be done, is it something that is policy oriented? Is it legal oriented? Or is it a matter of institution? Please don't be biased.
I think we were tough and correctly so to NYC, but
Yes.
seeing this here first, it's very interesting because the moment now there is a bill that might change how National Youth Council will look like.
Yes.
We don't know if BBI will even with the Youth Commission will even affect Youth Council further. But for now, I can just say that the issue is either institutional or administrative within the National Youth Council as an organization. I had a discussion with them. Some of the issues might be even funding from the line ministry. If there is no money following a policy or an institution, then there is nothing we are doing there. So I can just say that probably institutional and administrative for them to do a self-reflection, for them to do, how do you call it? Even things like just perception survey, how do young people think about them? But most importantly, there are councils that involves young people. They just need to listen to young people and get these ideas from young people.
So it's something that is institutional oriented. Do we agree? If you're online and you are representing the matter or you're listening to the matter of the National Youth Council, do you think that we need to tell the institution from the institutional perspective? Or do you think there is a law that needs to be formulated, or even a policy that needs to be formulated to ensure that the National Youth Council operates in a different manner away from what it's doing today? Back to this room. Is there anything that needs to be done? Is it institutional? Is it policy oriented? Or is it legal oriented?
So maybe to add on what my colleague has said here is that I feel maybe because this National Youth Council is under a ministry, like it's domiciled in a ministry, it's never independent. At any one point, the National Youth Council, since like 2006, it has never been independent. It's just always under the government. So, you know, when you're under maybe a ministry or a government, you can't go against maybe the government policy, be radical, and, you know, you want to help the youth, but there are systems you have to follow. There are bureaucracies, there are protocols, all that. So I feel the fact that they are under a ministry, there's so much curtailing of the youth voice. We don't feel it. We, even at the ground, at the counties, I've talked to maybe youth in my county, Nyandarua. I have not seen them very positive about the National Youth Council. They told me the last time elections were held, and it was a very long time ago, and I feel this is the same. It's reflective even in most counties. So I feel the fact that they are under a ministry, if maybe there are more independent institution, they would maybe have a voice for the youth, or they would be more representative of the youth. It's just a feeling I think that I have.
So,
Yes.
Yes, almost the same thought that just like any other policy or law in Kenya, that we have very good, very appealing policies, but implementation is a problem. And I've always said that Kenya will be entering into a Guinness Books of Records of being industrial manufacturers of law that are never or hardly implemented. So just like NYC, the National Council Act in 2011, I think, 2009, it is combined. It's institutional, it's a goodwill, because yes, the law is there, it's very clear. But what is wrong? I think also generally as a country, we need to go step back and assess ourselves. What is the problem with our laws? Is it that we make impractical laws? Is it that, what's wrong with it? Because is it that we don't have resources to implement what we make? So, and even some of these laws need resources, because there are some things that don't even need resources. So I think that they sabotage. That's on my side, that they sabotage just right from the government, that they don't want to make NYC a live council. Even with this commission that is being proposed in BBI, we need an assurance that we need to go the NYC way, or will just be a live one. So for me, is institutional, and inside the institution, there is sabotage.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have particular duty bearers that we do have? I like the fact that you say the NYC as an institution is in itself a duty bearer in this scenario, but yet you make a critical observation that it's always domiciled in a particular ministry. I think the last time there's a time when it was under Gender and Social Affairs. It should be under Interior. In the next regime, it should be under Foreign Affairs. In the next one, it should be under Livestock and Poultry and Fishery and all. So then,
they will take it under Interior because you are.
So then it's a body that keeps on moving. But yet, we also have fault with the NYC in the way it has undertaken its responsibilities. So then, are there particular approaches to what we need to do? We say that it's a particular ministry, that is the duty bearer. The NYC in itself is a duty bearer. Say, if we have make an advocacy plan towards the NYC, what particular approach must we undertake?
I think there
are a number of things that probably comes to my mind when you talk about the NYC, and you ask, because they represent youth, how much are they allocated? Oh, let me see. Yeah, nishiko na camera. The first question is, how much are they allocated? Because I have seen it several times. These are people who are struggling. When they come to a meeting, they struggle to even have things for the youth. There's no way, because most of you run institutions, and when you run institutions, you understand how much it costs to even have an activity like a small one like this. So when these people are people who are only given salary, so the best thing they can do is come and sit in the office, give suggestions and leave. And probably they will report based on partnership. You can't rely on partners, that's number one. Number two is there's a lot of bureaucracy that is within that structure. There's a time when we were discussing about how do we restructure the National Youth Council, and one of the most things came out that as at the time when they were being elected, and then they were ferried all the way from counties to come to Nairobi, and then they were dismissed. Like somebody would just say, what is that? He could not understand what this NYC is. As a youth, what some of the things that for me I would agitate for is, number one, they have to be given money. Number two, we have to clearly understand some of the programs that they do. And then number three, now there is a struggle between county and the national government where youth belong. So you go to the county and they say, youth, you are part of national government. Although you live in the county, but you should ask your shares from the national government. So these are some of the things probably we just need to start looking at. But I would have wished that our plan or our focus would be, how much do we get as young people, as youth, to run youth programs. So let's start from the budget, and then we follow up who is not doing their role. Thank you.
On the matter of NYC, we get to the tail end of this break. We are going to the break. For those who are online or keeping in communication and following this conversation, please kindly air out your thoughts on the matters that we've discussed so far. When we come back, we're going to talk about the capacity of the youth to engage in civil spaces. Civic spaces, not civil spaces. Civic spaces. So then, at this juncture, I ask of us to go for tea break, 20 minutes tea break. When we come back, we will get views that are coming from online. So if you're not going for tea break, you who is online, then please kindly air out your thoughts, because that is what we're coming back to straight away before we get into the next matter. Otherwise, for the now, have a beautiful day. You guys are fine? Yes. Are you guys fine?
Yes, we are.
You are? I'm waiting for Grace because we need to get online and find out what are the onliners saying. Sometimes the onliners are quite an interesting lot of people. And they might be able to be discussing something that is very different from what we're discussing. So then that is what we're going to do. But even beyond that, then we're also going to talk about the matter of youth capability and capacity to be in civic spaces. It's one of the issues that were raised through. So as we hold on to that thought, as we wait for Grace to bring the conversation online, then I think we left off at the NYC level. Is there anything that we left that was pending, or do you think that you thought about during tea break that needs to go into some of the things that we've said, especially for those who have not spoken? Guys, please get off the phones kindly. It's really nice for us to do this. This is a very critical moment. Our phones, we have all our phones all the time. So this is quite an interesting opportunity. Not to waste on your phone. Not entirely that you're wasting your time on your phone, but it's also really critical that we do this in the now. So do we have anything that is that's the burning issue that you felt that we might have left out in any of the matters that we discussed? Anyone? Anybody? Someone? Yes, we needed you to come and bring for us the conversations that are coming through. So yes, we're going to pick up conversations from the online spaces, that which people think and that which they say. So take it away, Chris.
Thank you, Josiah. My name is Grace. I'm part of the team from Siasa Place, and I'm going to go through a few of the comments that we have on Zoom. So Felix Obiero says, is the BBI addressing the issue of the youth population, which constitutes to roughly 13.7 million people? 5.3 million of the youth population are unemployed. Well, the BBI takes in the fact that there exists a large youthful population. It does not, however, address how job creation will be handled to the unemployed youth. So he's commenting on BBI with relation to youth and youth unemployment. As we wait for the rest of the team to come back online, one Sylvia says that for anything to do with youth, more times tend to be soothing music in order to allow the government
the government's intended purpose to go through? What makes us feel this could be a game change for the youth? How can this be implemented if the articles in the 2010 Constitution have yet to be implemented in regards to the youth? How many youth policies are lying in county assemblies that are yet to be passed? We need to raise a hand of concern. That is from Sylvia. We also have someone by the name of, as I said, as we wait for the guys who are online to join us, maybe we could have suggestions from the people in the room on the issues. Yes, so just continue from where we stopped before the break.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're back to where this conversation began. And the next agenda that we're going to look at, that was raised, that needs an action plan. And it needs an advocacy strategy. In the forum we held in Kisumu, the youth say that we need an improved capacity of youths to engage on civic issues and matters. You see, you're uniquely poised in this room to deal with the challenges that we experienced, that were found in Kisumu, and then provide a way to how we tackle these issues. In the first conversation that we were having on the matter, there was the feeling that there is a likelihood that the youth do not have sufficient capacity. That was just mentioned in passing. Now, it has been captured that there is need for the youth to be able to have capacity to engage in civic issues. First and foremost, do you guys agree that the youth do not have capacity to engage? That is where we take this conversation. If you're following online and you're a youth, do you agree that the youth do not have the capacity that whenever we engage in the civic spaces, then the youth, there's something that is missing? Is it true? Guys, what happened? Say yes. Yeah. In this space. In this space.
Not the online ones.
No, everyone.
We don't know if they are real.
Don't know, like everyone within, even here. Do we agree that the youth do not have the capacity to engage in civic spaces? Yes, sir.
Sufficient. Yes, like is that question like generally speaking, or because I do think the youth have, we do have the capacity to engage. There may be challenges, but I think we do have the capacity to engage.
In the forum,
yeah.
One of the things that was expressly captured is that we need to improve the youth's capacity to engage in civic spaces on civic matters. So then I do ask that in this space, do we confirm that we think that the youth do not have the required capability to engage in civic spaces? And if this is an issue, then how do we go about in formulating an advocacy strategy? Yes,
for me, I would say the group in this room, we can say have the capacity, but for the group that are a bit, they don't have this kind of access to these kind of networks, they lack that capacity. So for instance, when we have bills that are being passed and there's a section of the newspaper calling out for individuals to draft memorandums, most young people would say, no, that is for those and those certain types of people, lawyers and whatnot. They don't understand that within the constitution, you are supposed to be capacitated to engage in these kinds of processes. Yeah.
So it's the lawyers who understand these things. They are the ones who are supposed to be there, and they are the ones who are supposed to be invited. So then that is just a perception, but the reality of the matter is that it's not entirely for the lawyers. Then the question is, why are we not seeing them engage? Sir?
Yeah, thanks so much. When you're talking about the youth, do they have the capacity to take the civic space? First, I want to say that. First, I want to say that when you start with the question, do you have the capacity? I think they have the capacity, but the problem is the political goodwill. If you can see, for example, someone is supporting the other thing, then you have your own view as a youth, they will judge you differently. And even that opportunity will not be given. So I think the political goodwill in the country is the one which is affecting the youth to have the capacity in the civic space. So that's according to my view.
There's this animal that we keep on calling the political goodwill. I don't understand what got us into this space whereby we believe that there is an animal called the political goodwill, that we allow leaders to operate in a space whereby say wake up and will that today we are going to have this, then I have will, and we will have it. Say I am your leader and I am not willing, I do not have the will for people to get this, and because I'm not willing, then we won't have it. How did we fall into this trap? Yes, on the matters here.
I think as young people, we have come from far. Sometimes I feel as if we hit ourselves so hard,
yes,
and it's not fair.
Okay.
We are the, how do you say it? We are the marginalized majority.
Are we?
We have the numbers, but I don't think we understand the value of those numbers, of our numbers. We say politics about numbers. I don't think we understand what we're saying in terms of we have the numbers. But I also think we at a time where us young people are catching up. We are catching up very fast. We will leave some things behind, and it's a catch-up season for us. And this stage we are in for youth. It's a catch-up because you have life, you have school, you have family, and you have everything. So you're catching up. Politics comes as a catch-up later.
Yes.
So if we beat ourselves so hard, knowing that we have not been failures,
yes,
we destroy each other. Now, this word called the capacity we have, and we are continuously growing. We are not how we were 10 years ago. We were not, and we will not be in 2022. We'll be different. Tomorrow will be different. So it's continuous. It's continuous. We just need to catch, and we just need to make some things matter so that they catch up very fast. That's hope. That's hope. Reality is painful, but there is hope. So let's stick to hope. Now, this thing called political goodwill. I'm going to give a very bad example, and it really pains me to give this example.
Give it away. Please kindly.
Look at what happened in the county assemblies. Leave alone the bribes. This act will actually protect our children
it is a plus. It was negotiated. Whoever brought in was able to sweet talk and it ended up being an act. So for me, the idea of political goodwill, because once there is no consequence for not doing something in this country. It's about the goodwill of the people.
Yes, but also in the perspective of capacity of youth to engage on civic issues. Let's not debate.
Yes. For me, I think, first of all, this the elephant in the room at the moment, the political goodwill that we keep talking about, is it comes about because of the fact that any time you try to achieve something good, you must encounter resistance. It's normal. But for me, it also has something to do with the discouragement that sometimes the youth face, and sometimes they allow it to take, to get the better of them. It's a little bit like, the voter apathy, whereby the youth get to see that because of a particular challenge, then maybe they get to a point where they think of abandoning the fight. And that is the most dangerous thing that can happen.
Okay. So when it comes to the capacity for the youth to engage in civic issues,
yes.
Is it a matter of policy? Is it a matter of legal framework? Or is it a matter of institution?
It is. Yes, I'll say it's a matter of policy, but first the policy and the law has been addressed. What needs to be done is maybe just an amendment towards sealing the existing loopholes, because I pointed, for example, at what happens at the county level, at the devolved level across the country when, say, the budgeting process is going to happen. You find that anytime the public participation is supposed to be done, the youth are not properly informed in due time and about the venues of where it's going to happen.
I ask this question again, and the silence or the lack of enthusiasm to tackle this question is really quite shocking, both from the physical location as well as online. I do not know if they are active.
It's okay, but just because I'm seeing a few hands and guys are burning to respond, just allow me to finish. Yes, because people want to respond. I said it very clearly that there are laws governing public participation.
Yes.
And yes, it is done somehow in compliance with the law. But there are loopholes, and those loopholes are the ones that we need to seal in terms of, does that information trickle down in time? All right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The voice that is there anyone who has not spoken in this room since we began?
Okay, let me speak then. If this. Okay, first of all, I want to. I'm the first one who talked about the issue of capacity in relation to public participation. As I say that you cannot be in a table if you have a low capacity and contribute meaningfully. You just be there as an expert that youths were there, but you cannot contribute. So youth capacity is very key in terms of when it comes to public participation. And I will say that somebody says that youths have capacity. Yes, I say youths have capacity, but varied capacities. The degree of capacities varies. If you find those graduates, new graduates, or the one from 4 or 22 years, kind of, they are very low capacity. And senior ones like us who are heading towards outside the youth bracket, then those ones have capacity, depending on their interest in the first place, if they really wanted to have that capacity. And I would say that for the youth who are the young people between 18 and 25, mostly the problem is they don't know the connection, the relationship between the civic issues and their real life situation. If you tell a youth that there is public participation for budget, she or he will tell you, ni anini ata hainusu. So that's the problem. They cannot connect that him or her having no job, being unemployed, has direct relationship with the budget making process. So if they know that,
if they know that it has direct relationship, I think they will now create interest of now knowing what is there. To finish.
That's quite a superb analysis.
Yes.
Of why the youth lack the capacity. The question then becomes, is it a matter of the legal framework that we have in this nation? Is it a matter of public policies that we do have, or is it institutional?
No, it's, let me say it is legal. Why? It's legal because most of these policies are not time bound. They are not, they are ambiguous policies. Just talk of public participation. Just talk, there is no timeline. We wish to not to see that for it to be tied up, that for a public participation to be called a public participation, it must have this number of people. And for a policy to be said that it has been implemented, there should be time frames that within 2 years, there should be this number of youths having benefit from this. If there is no one who have benefited from a certain aspect that has been proposed in a policy, then that law should be either be declared defunct or it's not practical. So it's a legal issue, and with our legal issues, we need to make them practical by putting timelines and some tying up some things, not leaving it just ambiguous as it is now. Thank you.
Okay. Guys, let's not go into the discussion of the capacity of that youth. Let's not describe why the youth lack capacity. I want us, it has been established and we agree, and it is in the report, that the youth do lack the capacity to engage in civic matters. And I want us to run through this very fast because time is not on our side. We have a whole truckload of issues to still have. So if we need improved capacity of the youth to engage in civic issues, is it a matter of policy? Are there particular policies that need to be formulated? Who are the duty bearers, and what is the approach that we do need to take?
Well, Josiah, thank you for this opportunity. I want to agree with my friend on what he said, on what you said we should not say now, about why a young person lacks capacity. But I want to agree, hearing what you are asking that we should tackle, I want to say that it is a matter of institutional. The issue of disenfranchising a young person not to participate fully in civic duties has been institutionalized through weakening of policies that in the previous years would encourage young person to participate in civic duties. We are all aware that in the early 90s or probably late 80s, there was an issue. There was a group called Mwakenya. That was those were young people who were trying to fight KANU so that they can achieve some freedoms that were lacking at that time. So then, at that particular time, they were aware. They were aware there was need. They could see why. So one thing I will always say, duty bearer, I will say Attorney General.
The Attorney General.
Attorney General, the Attorney General's office. There's a law, for me to be a person who could attend this particular meeting to discuss these issues, I once was elected as a student leader. So you see, I was being given an opportunity through legal frameworks that the university should have student leaders to represent them. Well, they still exist, but then it was watered down somewhere that the system that they currently use to elect leaders is not the same as the one that we were using. So somehow that system used to expose us. We could engage in bigger civic space than young people could now, even in those particular positions. And that's a Duale bill. It watered down student leadership, and that is the first basis. College used to be like where you manufacture young leaders.
Yes.
But nowadays, what you only manufacture is something different from what used to happen then. So I would say if we follow up with the AG to revert back that bill that used to exist, that led to establishment of SONU, now we have UNSA. What is that?
So we are getting that there is an animal called the Duale Bill.
Yeah.
And that Duale Bill is one of the ways talked about the dual bill when we
I think someone might have talked about it, just contributing. Just I do not really want to dwell much because you said due to limited time. But then sometimes I'm in a position where I ask if many of us young people are aware about the realities. Like Rose mentioned, the realities about this country and how it bites, giving birth to a child with a loan on his or her head, the moment you think about that, it compels you to civically engage. The moment you think about, paying for the loans that you didn't consume as a young person, that compels you to, to begin to be civically engaged. So I think there is capacity, but how do we inspire that capacity, to be creative? The worst illiterate is a political illiterate. And he hears nothing, sees nothing, takes no part in political life. He doesn't seem to know, the cost of living, the price of beans, that of flour, rent, or medicine, all depends on political decisions. He even prides on himself being a political ignorant. And he sticks out his chest and he says he doesn't want anything to do with politics. Okay? This kind of an imbecile, doesn't know that out of his lack of political participation, we breed up a prostitute, that abandoned child, the robber, and worst of all, the corrupt officials that lack his exploitation that comes from multinational corporation. So that is a quote that I was just, reading. But you see, this is the cost of why young people needs to, we need to inspire them to engage, in civics. So who are the stakeholders? I will simply go back there. I always refer to us as a consortium here. I always prefer that we start from here. If we would go back and inspire our networks and civilly engaged with the communities that are youth constituencies, as you keep on mentioning, before we start asking at the national level, I think this is imperative for us that, the network, the consortium itself, National Youth Bunga Association, Siasa Place, all these civil society, political parties that are here, I think that in itself, we are responsive. So I would mention that.
That both captures the duty bearer as well as the approach that
And apart from laws, I think the County Government Act is elaborate about what is participation. So if we are to go back to the counties, I think then the County Government Act spells out then how we should participate.
Okay, Ima, you had a point on this. You had your hand up and then, or did you sit together and combine the points into one?
Okay, I think quickly, Dan is talking about County Government Act 2012. Talking about participation. In fact, that is the one document that talks about, I think it's part X, and Article 98 all the way to 101 talks about civic education, how civic education should be done, and who should do civic education. So I think it's very clear there that civic education first is an obligation of the county government to do civic education. But it's also mentioned that it needs to tap into civil society. So as here, to support in that civic education.
Ladies and gentlemen, creation of structures for mentorship of young leaders into governance, closely related to this, because then there's a likelihood that if we do have these capacity built youth who are engaged in civic spaces, then we have, by default, gotten them on the path to the government structures, right? Is it so? Is it true? Is it true that if we have built the capacity of our youth to engage in civic spaces, then by default we have ushered them into the governance spheres?
Yeah. Yes.
Guys, is it yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So if it's yes, so then a continuation of this, probably in the report you need to combine this, because then this leads into this. How then do we ensure that we get them here? Is it something that we've already talked about, or do we need to add anything extra? Is there anything that we've not spoken about? Because I feel that one leads into this. But in the event that then we have a civic space youth who has the capacity, but then they do not get into governance sphere, how then do we advocate for them to get into those spaces? So we have this active youth who knows everything about the civic spaces and issues within this community, but yet they still have a situation whereby getting into governance spheres is quite a hard task. How do we ensure this? Political structures.
I think it was elected.
Spaces, appointments, all these things that constitute governance. You are instructing?
Yes.
Retract away.
My bad. I think.
Stand. I probably should have asked what you meant, because there is normally a huge gap between moving from the university politics and the national politics. And most of the time, when someone makes that move and they don't have someone who is ushering them in, it is very difficult for them to have their heads above the water, because it is normally, the dynamics should be very similar, but are normally very, very different. And so the notion or the belief or the perception that the turnover from university politics into national politics is high is not true. That's why I say I want to retract my sentence, statement. Yeah.
So now that you're there, so what is the fact that these guys do not get to be engaged enough to get into the governance sphere? Is it a policy matter? Is it an institutional matter? Is it a legal matter? Is it something that is to do with what?
Let me say this. I don't know where to place it, because it could be institutional, because our political parties are also not very friendly or don't have a soft landing spot for people who are fresh into politics. You are thrown into the murky waters, and it's up to you to learn how to swim. It is up to you how to know how where to find yourself, how, and through which vessel, because you might find yourself there, but if it's through the wrong vessel, again, it's a problem. So I can say the institutions, the political parties. I will give an example with my party, KANU. So what we've tried doing is we have a university caucus where we try and mentor young people from the universities. So what then happens is that they get to experience the politics of political parties, and they get to know how to survive. They get to know, when do I need to speak? How do I need to raise an issue? And things like that. So then when they are done with university, that transition becomes very smooth and very easy, because this is a playing field that you have now grasped, and a playing field that you are now learning the corners and how sharp they are. So maybe that's one thing. Political parties can find a landing spot or a safe space for people who are in the universities. Oh, yes. Yes.
Does Sport Kenya have a youth league?
Yes, we do have.
Does not Kenya have a youth league?
Wait, sorry. Let me say this. Now that you've asked me, you've asked a question while I still had the mic. Allow me to say, youth leagues are very different from university caucuses. Youth leagues are very different from mainstream. Youth leagues have limited power as well. And the notion that just because someone was in the university leadership, it is very easy for them to come and be in the youth league and still maintain the kind of power they had in the university is a lie. It is possible on paper, but in reality it's very different.
It's also a pipe dream that it's not entirely true that from the youth league people will get to transition
no, it's not a piped dream. It is possible. However, it is that when we sell this idea out there, we make it to sound very easy. We make it sound like you will just get into a political party tomorrow, gather 5 people in a room, and then tell your political party, because I'm able to gather this number, give me the position of your National Youth League. It doesn't happen like that.
When not so many people are raising up their hand, I know we are in a
Yeah, first I want to say that the issue we are talking about, I want to categorize it into two. One institutional and another one policy. First, when you start with the institutional issue, you find that when you are a youth and want to be elected at the grassroots as an MCA or an MP, they will ask, what do you have in your pocket? Or someone has money and the person has bought something to the party leader. For example, I have my party, which let me just make it private. So the party felt that your opponent has even bought a vehicle or has given 2 million to the party. But you as a youth who just came out of the university yesterday or today, you have nothing and you have provided nothing. You will not be given the ticket, even if you have the majority. So I think that one is a policy issue. So at least we are supposed to educate the youths and know. Let's not do this thing because you have been told, elect someone, but do it from your will. And I think it is a policy issue which affects most of us. Then another thing, I wanted to talk about the issue of institutional issue, then the policy issue. Another one I want to talk about how we categorize the numbers we have. You find that sometimes someone is known. Like for example, someone is known in the university, he was a leader there, he was doing good things, but when he has been elected, they always come to get rich, not to be as a leader. And from the quote of my learned friend called Pierre Lumumba, he said that those who have the ideas, they don't have the chance to lead. But those who doesn't have the ideas, they have the chance to lead. So I think we are supposed to start from there. Thank you.
Do we have any specific duty bearers apart from political parties? I think it's really clear that the chance to be in governance spheres can be provided by the political party. Who is the duty bearer in this case? Is it the political party? Strategy? Is it clear?
So I won't answer your question. I just wanted to sort of shift it a bit, specifically for the reason why young women don't really get elected. I think a study was done by Mzalendo Trust, and I think maybe some of the ladies who took part in the study, I noticed that culturally, there's a big barrier as to why young women are not getting into leadership positions, even with mentorship. The barriers are insane. I won't mention them, but it was just something that I was thinking about, that I don't know how it can come out within this setup. Yeah.
So I can add on something. When our lady here was speaking, there's something that came into my mind on, sometimes even transiting from that student politics to the mainstream politics, maybe in the national level, I don't think everyone is interested in maybe the political seats. There might be people who are interested in being in that civil society or being in leadership in a different level, maybe being like a committee member, the CCM, the CECs. Yeah, there is people who are interested in diplomacy and all that. There are still leadership spheres that also have governance processes, but they're not necessarily political. And on that, I think even we can see like some state agencies or some development partners like the Canadian Embassy, they've been sponsoring even groups of women. You remember the show Miss President? What was it for? It was capacitating women to get into leadership, to get into the political leadership or in the different leadership spheres. It wasn't necessarily political, but it was geared towards a political kind of maybe leadership. So I'm thinking, you see, such agencies and maybe the UN bodies, they are also very supportive in that. I don't know, we can't call them the duty bearers, but we can maybe say they are partners who are propelling this issue of maybe helping the youth. And maybe I've specifically seen women because I've been a beneficiary of such a program to actually to governance level. So I think, I don't know, can we call them duty bearers or can we call them maybe agencies who are helping or partners who are helping in this issue?
I was so keen on political and governance capacity for youth. Because before you land into political parties, political parties as an institution also prides themselves in someone with capability to, run through that ticket and deliver. So, and as much as we call out political parties to be duty bearers, I think it's incumbent for young people, and I always like, it's give and take. The appreciation of content in you that gives a political party to view you as a potential, personality to be co-opted to run with the ticket or to be mentored through. So this issue, refer you to two reports. I think one has just been mentioned. The Center for Multi-Party Democracy has got an elaborate report about youth in political participation. And they actually mentioned the role of the political party youth leagues, that what they do to young people is to relegate them. You are not co-opted into the mainstream political decision-making organs like ANC, NSC, or the main big organs of the party. But then you will be relegated to either women league or women caucuses or the youth leagues, where you cannot make a lot of decisions for you to participate on the party. So I think for me, I pride myself on the fact that before a party identifies you, as a young people, you should actually showcase that you are well content oriented to deliver within, the premise of those political parties. The role of individual mentorship. And I don't know whether we call them stakeholders, because it's difficult to identify individual as a stakeholder. So I think it's important for institutions, other non-governmental entities like my sister mentioned, to bring up to the mentorship role. If it lacks on the political parties, then there should be a mentorship role, for those who are politically engaged.
Political parties takes front stage. Development partners go a long way with the strategies of how, but the biggest one then becomes self-interest. So how then do you rise up to ensure that as a youth, you get to be something? One thing that Dan says that makes sense is that political parties pride themselves in youths who have the capability to drive the agenda of the day through. Are you shaping up yourself to be that youth that the political party that you'll be part and parcel of will be proud of? Ladies and gentlemen, we have the aspect of conventions at both county and national level. The fact that we do not have conventions, maybe at county level or at national level, is it a matter of institution? Is it a matter of policy? Is it a matter of law? Do we need conventions, youth conventions at party, at national level or at county levels? You guys don't agree? You don't think we should have conventions? Conventions to do what?
Allow me to be a sadist here. For what? For what?
Are we not tired of just being called at KICC and just sit down and you're given lectures, una dance kidogo, then you leave? Because those are conventions. Those are the real definition of conventions in Kenya. You use state money, you're driven, school buses are hired, you're picked from your village, your school bus is paid for 10K, you're taken to Kasarani, you're given that small soda and bread, the bus takes you back to your village. So what are conventions for? Because if we had a specific agenda, which we young people never seem to have. If you tell me you're going to take me to Eldoret, unitoa Nairobi, remove me from Nairobi, take me to Eldoret, and you're going to tackle the issue of unemployment, that I will actually pack my bag and come to Eldoret and discuss. But if you're coming for us to celebrate the Youth Day, I'm sorry, and taking it to Kisii, and then it's all about being lectured. What was the point? Still the issue of unemployment has not been addressed, and it will never be addressed in such forums. So truly, the idea of conventions, unless we see personally, unless there are real issues to be discussed in those big meetings, I don't see the point. But anyway, that's my, najua nitamezo, but that's my personal opinion.
Okay, I think I'll support her. But in addition to that, I think we are so much into these boardroom meetings after meetings. We are here, we discuss policies, very good policies on paper, but when it comes to implementation, what happens? Have we seen any outcome? You might be called even for that forum to go and discuss that unemployment. Then what after that? Are there ways forward? Will there be a follow-up mechanism even for that issue? Because you might just talk, then there will be no sustainable solution that can be beneficial. So I think it's time we really got out of this boardroom. There's one minister who said that this boardroom has become just a place for empty rhetoric. And I want to agree with him, because sometimes we talk too much. You want to kupimana intelligence, to be seen, oh, you're the one who has the most points, you're the one who knows the most in the constitution and all that. But when it comes to actualizing these things, where are we as a nation and as youth as well?
People and everything else, no, we don't need any convention. That's what we are saying.
I feel that's.
If it's not defined and specific with specific outcomes, then there's no need for national or country convention.
Yes, and sometimes, this fairing is because maybe there's an incentive. You're a broke youth, you've been told, huko, tunaenda tunapatiwa 1,000 as fare. So you just go maybe for that fare. You won't even go to contribute, you won't listen, you won't do anything. So I think sometimes it's just that incentive. The message may be good, or maybe the intention may be good, but what are specifically these conventions for? What are people going to do there?
So do we strike this off?
Yeah, I think we should. Okay, there's one point here.
I think we've been doing it wrong. Now we are scared here doing it because we've been doing it wrong.
So we need to get it right.
So we've been doing all this thing wrong, and from what they've said, we are scared doing it because people in the past have done it wrong. They've ferried people with school bus, and so we are here scared doing something because. Yeah, so we are scared moving forward with it.
Is it a matter of policy, or is it a matter of legal framework, or is it a matter of institution? That is where the conversation is. So then, if that is the case, then do we need to strike off all conventions that happen within this country and say, you know what, it doesn't help the youth, there is no need for that?
Let me say something. Just as the brother there said that we have been doing wrongly, and doesn't mean that if we have been doing it wrongly, we will strike it. No. For me, it's conventions that helps people assess or reflect what some of the policies that are in place. Are they being done? Are they, the extent to which it has been implemented? So if you strike it, for example, then there will be a total blackout. We will not know where we are and what's going on. So it's good that conventions are some of the opportunities that you should make use of. They should make use of it as in rallying the government, coming up with the proper deliverables that in the next meeting, in the next conventions, we want this and this to be implemented.
So is it a matter of policy or it's a matter of legal framework that is existing? That is what I want us to agree.
I think I will say follow up for the existing legal frameworks. Yeah. As in follow-ups, as in I'm saying, for example, there's a Youth Council Act, isn't it so? So then in the conventions, it's up to you now to follow up on the extent of the implementation of it. So that when you are in convention one, in the next convention, you'll want to know the government as directly or as there's some specific things that you will wish to see government having implemented in the next conventions. So I think it will be progressive, should be defined, should have some clear deliverables or outcomes. Yes.
That we need to do this. Guys, we're answering the approach, and the approach is so far sufficient. But one thing that we're failing to agree is whether it's a policy matter, or it's an institutional matter, or it's a legal matter. And if there are particular duty bearers that need to formulate this.
Maybe we get comment from someone.
Yes, somebody.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Otino Bero. I work for Agenda Kenya. Agenda Kenya is a youth-led organization in Mombasa. The conversation is ongoing very well. Just from my contribution about the national conventions. The conventions are needed with the youth. Basically, they will provide the opportunity for the youth to discuss, to talk about issues that are of much importance to them. But who is organizing these conventions? Is it the national government? Who are they partnering with? Because the conventions that have been happening over past years have been viewed as political tool, where people take opportunity to try to drive the agenda, to push their own agendas. So if these things are to involve youth into discussing youth issues, maybe youth participation in politics and governance, then it really needs to be organized by the youths themselves. There will never be anything with us without us. We have to get involved into these kind of initiatives that maybe will bring change to us as the youth nation. So my take is the conventions are good to us. They will provide the platform, but to be organized by the government in partnership with maybe the youth-led organizations, youth leaders. Yes, that is my take.
Do we agree, ladies and gentlemen? Ruth, you disagree. Yes.
But again, I am one person who believes that you have to learn from the mistakes in order to move on. So I am just trying to see if this whole sorry. I hope you heard the first part. But I feel like the whole idea of saying let's do it and not disregard the fact that it's been done badly in the past, but let's try and start afresh. The questions that need to be asked is can we do something different apart from a convention? Because if you call me Ruth Bolo from Karachuonyo, you tell me I'm going to a convention, I will pack my things because I know I'm going to sit in a hall, listen to panelists, and then go back with my reimbursement. That is what is in my mind. So by the time I come there, even if it is even if there's a different approach to it, already my mind will be tuned to listening. I might not go through whatever I need to go through. I might not look at the documents that need to support it. So I feel like I cannot say yes because there's a whole dynamic that needs to be considered before we say it is a convention. This is what is going to work. Let's move ahead with it, because we also don't want to just put something for the sake of putting it. And then 2, 3, 4 months down the line, we realize that really we should have really looked at this in a bigger picture, So for me, I can't say yes. And I'm also not saying.
The question of education is the next challenge or is the next problem that the youth have. So we do need to check the aspect of changes to the Election Act to allow youth without degrees to run for and to run for both MCA and MP's office. Is it a matter of policy? Is it a matter of legal framework? Is it a matter of law? It's a matter of the law. It's a matter of the law. Yeah. Do we need to task any particular Digibera? Members of Parliament. Members of Parliament. Approach? How do we need to approach this? This in 1 minute, because time is really bad.
I think the best way we can approach it is to maybe we can do a memorandum or a petition and address it to Parliament, because the law as it was captured in, say, the Elections Act back in 2011, there's always a process that leads to it's always thought out, and I think it would be a disadvantage rather. Well, sorry, I don't mean to repeat myself, because the point had already been made that it's important. So what we need to do is just check, maybe petition Parliament that they consider that law amended so that they don't.
Who's going to lead this initiative? Do we first agree with the initiative that we should scrap degrees?
We agreed, and that's why it's there. We agreed in Kisumu. Yeah. Have you read the Elections Act 2011? You've seen the provisions that are there. Yeah, that's why I'm just quoting the act.
We were not opening up this conversation.
Yes. On what? Because on listen, okay, for the benefit of those who are not in Kisumu, the argument was, listen, can I have your attention, Rosa?
In Kisumu, let me just bring this in
Josiah, since you're moderating it,
time is really
yes.
tight. Let me just do it. There was a proposal that then the aspect that is coming into effect, that we are going to elect only people who have degrees into positions of power. That is the MCs or the MPs, that is what happened, especially at the MCs level. So that bill is coming into effect in this coming election. Now, there was a feeling that this is something that is going to disenfranchise the youth.
How? Yes, someone is asking how. Japheth is asking how.
A good number of youth do not have degrees. So if we have a good number of youth that do not have degrees, then it means
They cannot run for office.
policy or the educational requirements are going to lock the youth out of that space.
And there's another angle. Listen, Japheth, I'm explaining to you. There's another angle. The education system in Kenya is not homogeneous. You have people who are in the technical sector. For example, I'll give you an example of people in aviation in this country, specifically engineering. What they do is they do diplomas, then they go for academic licenses. You understand? So their qualification, what they have on paper is not a degree. Another example is flight crews, for example. When pilots come out of high school, they train, they go for private pilot's license, commercial pilot, airline transport pilot. It's not a degree. Are you telling me someone who flies a Dreamliner or a Boeing cannot run for office as a member of parliament?
So
you understand?
That is the crux of
yeah.
Then it should be diploma. No, you see, that's what we ask.
I think, guys, let us not dwell on it so much. When we don't agree, we just leave it that we didn't agree on that. Because we are here to say, yes, the thing is, guys, yeah, no, let's be open to say that we can't agree with everything. We know it's an issue. We can leave it pending. And then, no, just, I was quiet when you were talking. So just be quiet. The reason why I'm saying that is because I can start another argument and say, do we want to lower the standard because there are few people who don't have degrees? Look, go into the county assembly where people just pass things because they were elected as leaders. They don't understand what's happening. Ask them about the finance bill. What they say, leta hiyo kitu tupitishe. So what I would rather is, okay, there are things that we've agreed. There are issues we know we have agreed on it. We proceed with them. The ones that we don't agree entirely, we say that these people were of this opinion and these people were of this opinion. And then that's the discussion that we carry forward.
There is what reactions from the online group who think that, what are they saying, Grace?
Bina. Hi, everybody. Grace, am I audible?
Yes.
There's a bit of an echo. I'm not sure if it's from my end, but thank you so much for convening this meeting once again, Siasa Place and the partners, and also for the participants who are contributing. I'll try and just go through my points real quick because we didn't have an opportunity to contribute when the meeting began. So I'll probably just try and run through my comments that I was trying to scribble. So number one, I still haven't had like a bit of clarity when it comes to access to information, even as we wind up in this meeting, maybe by the end of the day or by lunchtime. And I'm talking about access to information because I think when we began, Rosa had mentioned something that I thought was important in terms of even, when we talk about public participation. So when we were discussing the budgets, right? She did say that we actually right now have potentially a budget lying in Parliament. So even as we talk about people, young people, not aware of when these public participation meetings are happening, from my personal experience, and I think I had even written in the comments, so it is one thing to actually be aware of when the public participation meeting is happening. And it's also another thing for you to be able to contribute meaningfully in those meetings when you already have accessed the documents. Because if the document is coming right now, I mean, even when we began this meeting, Adiema was asking us to actually go through the report. You see, if you have read the report before, you've digested and internalized what is in the report, it helps you actually contribute meaningfully because you've actually gone through it, you've focused on some of the things that you want to bring out. So here's a situation. Yes, I know the meeting is going to be like on Friday, but I go on Friday and then I'm presented with this document that has even figures that I've never been like, really, I can't even internalize those figures. I mentioned here on the comments that we did mobilize participants to participate in a meeting some time back. I think April, this is 2019, because last year was COVID, yeah? And when we got there, we were barred from entering the meeting. So these were Chama women, because we also work with Chama women at the community. We were barred at the meeting because they said they were expecting 100 participants and they had already reached that number. Can you imagine? We were about 79 people outside. And so this person the official was coming outside to have me reduce the number and maybe they can let in like 20 people. And this was a public participation meeting. Okay, so let's say they had allowed the 79 people. So the 79 of us, yeah, the women, to go inside the meeting. Then you're presenting them with documents that have, the documents that have figures like what, 10 million, 50 million. Huyu ni mama mboga, ajaita tengeneza 10K a month, ama 100,000 a month. Just them digesting 10 million, 10 billion. They're like, OMG, So I think it's quite important for us to also understand how do we actually access these documents. Even some of us actually, we interact with guys who are unemployed. They've never even earned a salary, like annually, to a tune of even 5 million or even 10 million. So you're asking them to break down these figures and they're thinking, ayun pesa mob, health in apata 10 billion. That's a lot of money. They can't even conceptualize 10 billion. So I think it's, for me, I'm still like looking for that clarity, even as we finish. How are we accessing these documents? Even for some of us who are aware of when these meetings actually take place, we still need to be very well informed to engage meaningfully and represent the people who are not able to participate in this meeting, even for us who have like little privilege to access these documents before. How are we also just analyzing it and breaking down the information for some of us who might not have that access? And also given the fact that access to information is a right because it's in the Constitution, right? Article 33, is it 33 or 31? That is one that I'm still seeking clarity on that. Access to information is very key to me. Also for us to help the people that we work with and even our friends and even ourselves. So that is one on public participation and access to information. Number two, even as I hear us shifting the blame on leaders, and I'm just looking at the people who are in the room. Some are my friends, some I know them, and some of us might find ourselves tomorrow in Parliament. And as we are well aware, the people in this, in the meeting right now, we know they're going to look for seats. They're going to be candidates, aspirants in this next election, right? And God willing, they might actually be the next leaders. So even for us who are in this particular space right now, what accountability mechanisms are we putting in place to hold some of us who are in this meeting who are very eloquent and tomorrow might be among the MCAs who are being bribed with cars? So what accountability mechanisms are we putting in place for that? Because the thing with, let's say the colonial time, that I appreciate about the colonial time is that you knew how the enemy looked like, how the enemy talked like, how the enemy even sounded, because the enemy was a white person. Before we gained our independence, you saw a white person, you knew that is the enemy, because we was trying to, majorly the colonialists, apart from the collaborators who were Africans, the main guys were like white. So when you saw a white person, you knew that's the enemy. Right now, it's so hard to know who the enemy is because they look like you, talk like you, but they are not about you. We have people amongst us who are so eloquent in these matters, who are even in civil society, but they'll sell out this cause because someone gave them a car, because someone paid their rent. You know, like they'll sell out the whole cause, okay? So now that we actually know that there's some of us who might actually be in power tomorrow, what accountability mechanisms are we putting in place, even as civil society, even as Siasa Place, even as Badili Africa? Is there something we are signing? Is there like a pledge sheet we are signing, such that tomorrow, if Rosa, my good friend, gets into power, if Wanjiro, my good friend, even Bolo, my good friend, gets into power, or even myself, I get into power, you're like, but Bina, this is what you used to say when we were together in these civil society meetings, but you're a sellout. You're deviating from what you're saying. You even signed here that when you actually get into these spaces of influence, this is how you're going to be, you know, so that we have something to even hold these people accountable. Young people are 70%, right? Make the bulk of the population in this country. What that means is that the future of this country is going to be shaped by our decisions going forward, because we make the bulk of the people in this country. So for me, I think that's it from now. Thank you so much.
So, you've had all the conversations that are going through. The one that we have is, do we take out the degree need for us to elect leaders? Or do we need to? No more conversation on this. Say we can't seem to, if we, this is where we go with the vote, so that then we reflect to say the room, the people in the room say 14 say that we don't take it out, for the other 14 say that we don't take it. Do we need to take out the provision that is coming into effect in 2022 that people who are elected should be having degrees?
I want to restrict myself. I think we should scrap the issue of degree out, but look for canvas over a standard, way. And I was consulting, we were just consulting with my friend there. I think we have a proposal.
Chapter 6 is the way. Chapter 6 of the Constitution is the standard. So people without a degree who have a degree but don't abide by chapter 6. So when we say find a way for us to accommodate people with, well, I agree with you that we need to scrap the degree, but also we already have a standard which is chapter 6 of the Constitution. Integrity. Yeah.
Something that is might not be paper related, but is there a standard that we can say if it's not a degree or diploma?
So what would that standard look like?
The standard is according to the election 2011. That standard can be maintained. If I could read it out loud. I could just share. Yeah, where the camera is. Sorry. No, it's not long. I'm just going to read the Elections Act 2011. That is, I think, section 22(1)(b). It says a person may be nominated as a candidate for an election under this act if that person, A, is qualified to be elected to that office under the Constitution and this act, and B, holds a certificate, diploma, or other post-secondary school qualification acquired after a period of at least 3 months study, recognized by the relevant ministry, and in such manner as may be prescribed by the Commission under this Act.
So in a sense, we need to revert to that.
Yes, yeah, that's...
Can I add something else? And since government is about service, and I think we should also add something about you need to have proven that you have served your community before you can vie, because government is about service and we've forgotten that. I think so.
That is approach. That is the approach. You say the standard is, let's revert to what was there, where it's not restricted to.
Because if we are scrapping degrees and diploma, we are not leaving it open
to anyone
who are not qualified, to get into leadership positions. And we must be very serious about this forum, because we are just proposing things that Vina just mentioned. Some of us are going for leadership positions. And the decisions that we are making right now, if it doesn't get to the mainstream decision-making organ, that we are ratifying this, then it affects us back.
Who is the policy, who is the duty holder that we're going to petition?
I think it's parliament.
Who is going to undertake this role? I agree with all the approaches that we've used. So who is going to be in charge of this? Do we have people who are going to buy? Because sometimes you're also just speaking as people who are in this room, yet the people who are interested in buying, they've all already prepared themselves for those positions. You see, that is the challenge of this discussion we're having. Everyone who is vying for position in 2022, there's a likelihood that they've prepared themselves for that position.
Let me just give my view. I think we have the people, and I think it's parliament and the institution, which is the political parties. Then another thing, I think we are supposed to have a legal bill which support at the county assemblies for the MCS to pass the bill in their local languages. So I think when we have that, when we implement that, it will also help us. When we take the bill, we are doing away with the degrees for the office of MCS and MPs. Yeah.
You get what that captures? The translation of the bills in the local dialect, you get what it captures?
Yeah. Because I think you can remember.
You do not force people to know English or Swahili.
Yeah, because
Yet we have that the national languages are Swahili.
This one at the local, at the county assembly.
I am seeing an opportunity.
Yes.
The opportunity that is there is the BBI technical. I think there's a committee that has allowed room for public participation.
Okay.
On the on the bill that was taken back to the National Assembly and the Senate before he's brought for a referendum and the vote. Every time I refer to this caucus, I say that we would marshalize our numbers and present before any platform that we have, because this is an issue that Imeshinda at those MCS. Because right now, Josiah, to be very sincere, there's about issues about car grants and all these things that is appealing. But what we know that is not futuristic. The futuristic is that we want them also as part of being appealing because of car grants. Can we also talk about certificate issue? Can we also express this certificate issue and diploma issue to them? That would also qualification issue to them to back up, There's an MCA forum. I don't know whether is influential in this or not.
Okay. So we are still not in the clear of who exactly. We have all the approaches that we do need. We have all the duty bearers we think we need to get to, but then we do not have a specific person who we're going to task with running this. Okay. We have the matter of the youth development policy. Let's scroll up. We have the matter of the youth development policy. Who do we need to task with? When BBI comes, then it's one of the things, those things that are going to need the formation of the National Youth Commission.
What about NYC?
What about it? Assume that it will sort out the matter of youth engagement in entrepreneurship. So all these things, when we talk about the National Youth Development Policy.
And NYC?
So do we task NYC?
By the way, they're in this session, right?
They were invited. We understand that they were invited, but they're online. Oh, okay. So National Youth Council is online. So who do we need? Do we need to task NYC? Or this is a case of the arts? Are we interested in something that might not be there? That is the question. So do we leave it pending for now until we are That yes. We are not sure. So then at this point, then we put subject to BBI.
Hey, why?
So where do we put this? So we leave it pending?
I think we leave it. If NYC or cannot take it, then
there's no one that can
there's,
take it.
yeah.
The implementation of all proposals under inclusivity that do not require constitutional change. Remember the first document that we read? The implementation of all those policies. So all those things that they are saying that looks really nice about youth engagement, youth development, and things like that. The others that do not require the constitutional change. Who should we be able to? Yes. Something like that. They are under the BBI report. There are things that we believe are possibly positive to the youth space.
You know, did you mention? Sorry, because I came. Were there those proposals? Yeah. Which we can have anyway.
And they don't. There are things that are not in the current constitution. I don't think if those were captured among the recommendations. So most of these things are things that we can probably work around, because inclusivity, for you to do anything and exclude others, is illegal. So I think that is the spirit.
So I've just gone back to some of the youth-oriented issues that are under inclusivity that do not entirely need the constitution to be passed on. It says the challenges highlighted under this theme include limited employment opportunities for them. Whether a BBI passes or not, we will have limited opportunities for the youth. That is something that is there. We are not seeing. So the frustrations with the job market, stringent entry requirements into jobs both in public and private sector. Lack of implementation of Kenya Youth Development Policy 2019. We have difficulty in accessing the 30% public procurement provision and existing youth funds. Then we have the lack of structured mechanism for the youth engagement in governance. So in the event, then we do not have BBI passing or BBI not passing. These are issues that are with us. They are matters that the youth grapple with each and every single day. So then that is where the problem comes in. That is it possible that we can push for the implementation of issues that are under inclusivity without necessarily banking on the passing of BBI or not?
Yeah. I tend to think that these issues are, some of them are policies that are already in the existing policies.
Yeah.
Okay. Without not really going to the details of BBI, Anybody feeling that. Of course, I think we should even talk about BBI, by the way, if time could allow us. But since it requires that specific, I think these are issues. If you look at some of them, they're already finding their space within institutional frameworks. So the problem is the implementation, and I tend to believe that whether BBI, pass or not, these are mandatory. These are irreducible minimums. Let me use that word for the young people. These are like the baseline through which youth should be negotiating with the government. So if BBI passes, like Ken mentioned, then there would be probably an added impetus to this. But I think if it doesn't pass, this is a bare minimum. I mean, there's no negotiation about 30% procurement and all these things that are provided.
Institutional policy related, and they also, do we have legal aspects here? Yes.
So maybe some of them are legal because the report is very clear on implementation. So there is the constitutional amendment. That is the thing that we are afraid of. Yes. So because the report, and there are many reports, so I'm talking about the October report, is clear about 4 ways of implementation. So there's the constitutional amendment that we don't want to talk much about. Then now there are some laws that don't require constitutional amendment. So they are calling it standalone laws. Some of them are captured here. Then we have policy and we have administrative. So definitely, as young people and as people gathered here, we can find ways to engage with the 3. Things that are standalone laws, things that are policy in nature, and things that are administrative. Even now, with or without the bill.
So it captures it all, it's a truckload of all of them. Question is this: who do we target with? Who's the distributor?
For the standalone bill, and I think they were listed in the BBI report towards the end, a number of bill. For those one, the duty bearer will be the Assembly, National Assembly and the Senate. For administrative, it's difficult. It's supposed to be the specific executive departments just to do what they're supposed to do what we pay them to do.
Same is for the next one. So do we, all the things that we've discussed are talking about the approaches that we're going to do. We're targeting both the county and the national government. Do we have specific actions that are going to be plugged into this to say this is your responsibility? Or do we assume that the consortium that we have here is going to take charge? No, we're talking about this. We're talking about the ones that we plan.
My feeling is just a place and anyway, develop another very open forum where we can discuss this very because I believe as much as this is required, we came up with so many proposals. Some of them we probably some of them we keep pending. So for this one, and even with the report, I think that there are so many issues about inclusivity that are probably not mentioned within the other, what you're running through, and of which I think is important. But for now, temporarily, I think it's a consortium that still can talk about, those issues. But then I propose that we can, for now, leave them pending. Because, and if we can still find an opportunity to weigh in, because like my colleague is mentioning, you find that there are other issues that are standalone, there are policy issues, there are legal issues that we might not really penned our discussion towards right now. That is my appeal. Yeah.
The next is for the implementation of all proposals under shared prosperity that do not require constitutional change. So the under the shared prosperity again, say we say under shared prosperity. These are the issues that are captured under shared prosperity. Failure of the economy, generate sufficient jobs, employment, frustration with lack of sufficient meaningful job opportunities, lack of long-term economic development plan in which industrialization is aggressively and consistently encouraged, insufficient efforts by the government to promote and develop small business owners in the country, to enhance self-employment, lack of coordination among various government relatives. Does this also get to have the same fate?
Yeah.
You stretch towards the right, stretch towards the right, stretch towards the left, stretch your hands, then be on toes, stretching the toes. Please touch here, touch here. Touch here, just try to touch here. Just try to touch here. That's why you the way I'm stretching. So let's sit down. We're homing in. So do we agree that this happens goes with the same fate as the first one? Same institution and same contractor. So let's go back to the we have the incorporation of a detailed report articulating the progress made by counties in promoting youth affairs in the governor's annual State of County Address. We need to find out the state of country during the State of County Address in the governor's report. How do we find out matters to do with youth affairs in various counties? Is it policy oriented? Is it institutional, or this is a matter of legal?
In the county's annual
Guys, is it
incorporating
policy
details.
or is it institutional? If we need to incorporate a detailed report talking about youth affairs in counties, who do we need to approach?
The Council of Governors.
Council of Governors. So is it a matter of institutional? Is the Council of Governors an institution?
It is.
There are people who are not sure. They fashion themselves as an institution. Do we look at them as an institution? So this, we are going to say that this is an institutional problem. That they don't include youth affairs in their annual report, right?
Yeah.
Guys, you're not sure if the state of the county address usually include youth report, right? Home of it doesn't include. Does the county include youth reports in the annual report? So here, we've said that this is what? This is the institution of government, right? Yeah. We are targeting the council, governors, as well as the county government. The approach is what? We're also asking the consultant. Is it the consultant, or do we have the youth-led organization?
I think the approach is petition, but the thing of the petition, the only petition approach to do something. So are they obligated to report back? If they are, then the approach will be petition. Why are you not reporting back? But now the question is, are they obligated to report specifically on this affair?
I am tempted to think that each and every year there's always an annual devolution. What? The state of the. I don't know. They do it on annual devolution conference. I think so. I may not be able to know the frameworks or what guide, what really the county government or the council of governors has to mention on their report. But I think on the state of devolved system of government, what probably I think is that they must also forthcome with the state of the youth in their respective counties. I tend to believe so. I don't know how, truthfully or reality that is. So my thinking is that if we would target, and what just mentioned that the county government, there might be a loose organ called, which is not, of course, constitutional. The Council of Governors is not really a constitutional body, but I think is a caucus. So if that would form a basis of approaching to know exactly what guides the reports within the respective counties in terms of youth issues, then I think that it could be the way to go.
So this has got me thinking. We at the counties we already have this department for youth, gender. Is it youth, gender, and what? I'm not quite sure, but there's youth, gender, and something. So I'm thinking maybe there are reports that are brought to this youth office or this gender office, maybe from the youths. Are there youth groups within the counties that maybe consolidate their reports, or organized maybe youth groups that consolidate these reports and bring them to this department, which I eventually put in the main document of the main report of the county? Because maybe from this main report that is in the county, maybe it can be shared among the other 47 counties. I don't know. As in, is there such a mechanism? I'm not quite sure if there's such a maybe mechanism that's followed from the youth at the ground and then to the ministry and then maybe to the county.
Do we need to write in the what other instrument can we use? If it's not a petition, then it could be one. This is where the ball is being thrown to the National Youth Building Association. How do you see NYBA getting into this? How do we ensure that we have a youth report that is coming through at the annual devolution conference and also at the annual state of the county address? And
Yeah.
why must it be there?
Yes, we have tried before, and just as it was said earlier that sometimes there's no political goodwill. So as much as we push, even in some counties, we are part of the budget economic forums, and in like West Pokot, for example, one of our own is there. And at one point, the governor said he doesn't even understand what's the purpose of this so-called economic forum in the constitution. So yes, we will try and come up with some petitions and or or commitments to the county governments, especially where we are active, and ensure that at least in the report, the final report of county address, youth, there's something for the youth. For example, in the past speeches, I one time participated in writing governor's report, and we ensure that some of the things highlights have been mentioned for us, and as a result of some public participation that we had done with the youth, they were inside and they were included. So I say that yes, we can take lead on that in some counties, but not all the counties.
Okay, so you're going to take lead in the counties that NYBA is present, but you can also do the big approach of the COG, that is the Council of Governors, that Delta House states. So then we have the amendment to the University Act reversing the student and the first when that university students are electing their representatives. We talked about the dual bill at some point. I think this has been sufficiently covered during the discussion when we said that we were going to approach the Attorney General, right? But the question is, who is going to do this? I wish there was a representative from or the youth, the university students.
No, that one is not questioning the implementation. The thing was to scrap Duale Act, yeah, so that something else comes in. And you know that means probably just talking to a young parliamentarian who can buy into the idea and propose something different.
And so, do we? Yeah.
The collaboration between place and Young Parliamentarians Association, for example, you know, would be key so that in sessions like this, if we have representative from Young Parliamentarians Association, because Duale is a sponsor of the bill, I think so. And if he's the sponsor of the bill, it would be very difficult to convince him to drop it or to amend, yet probably that bill is in some segment, is in some stages, is an act. Is it an act? Enacted. So in that case, amending that act would require, you know, collaboration within the parliament, and that makes it that we can lobby with the members of Young Parliamentarians Association, which CSA Place stands a position to, you know, invite on board or just on board them, you know, that we can discuss with them this issue.
That is clear and bold. Ladies and gentlemen, just finally, when our energies are running dry and people are on their phones and the concentration is going away, is that the development of youth policy documents by county governments as a cascade from the National Youth Development Policy. And I think you mentioned that there are counties that already are developing this. So what about the counties that are not having this, or the counties that are not extensive on this? For example, I know Makwene is quite extensive with youth, the national, or the county youth development policy. So how do we ensure that we go about this? Is it a political problem? Is it a policy problem? Is it a goodwill? Let's say you guys introduced something called the goodwill. Is it a matter of legal framework, or what is it? It's a policy issue. So all the counties need to adopt a policy that is talking about national youth development, the national youth development. So in this case, it's going to be county youth development policy, right? And also NYC. So many matters to do with youth conversation, youth engagement is. then please put that and capture it.
Some of these proposals, what I'm saying is that we cannot really absolve ourselves from mentioning and involving NYC. Whether they are watching online or whether they are participating, I think it's key that the role of NYC is integral in what we are discussing today. And if we try to tend to think that, it's about NYBA and Siasa Players and civil society organization and political parties, there is a need for NYC to actively, fast track some of these issues we are mentioning. Because however much we will proceed to some level, I think they will ask us, but why did you not talk to NYC on some of these proposals? So I think we just engage them, mention them as stakeholders, but further also engage them to some of these proposals and get the feedback.
Okay. No, I was just wondering then what is the role of the youth departments at the national level and at the county government level, because we are mentioning DTBR, but we're not mentioning these departments. So what do they exist for if it's not for all of this, proposals and implementing work? They should fall under those departments, yes. Yes, because why are you there? What is the point? Yes, what are you doing there? Like what you my God.
Do we agree? Ladies and gentlemen, is there anything that we're forgetting to talk about? Gracie, do we have any sentiments from the people online, what they've said so far, before we bring this home? In the meantime, is there anything that we've left and because we are homing in?
Felix Obiero, he says the Duale Act has killed the comradeship at the university. We have to do something, maybe a dialogue, maybe a little bit of noise. We have someone by the name of Daniel Ngahu. He says the inclusivity has always been a problem in most government institutions. Hence, many youth know so little about policies and provisions. Kaluma Mutevu says there are many youth-related policies and provisions both at the county and national level that seem not to be known by us. Esbon Muraya says, I hold a different view on the degree issue. The MCA and MP posts are more academic than political. Felistas Wambua, most youth are not ready to bring change. Let's participate verbally and also in action. We are the majority, and if we stand strong to be counted, lots can be changed. We can change a lot of things in many ways. We can make a lot of change in the way things are done in this country. Do we really support each other as youth? Do youth know their rights? Do they participate in the budget making processes, policies, and etc.? We should come together as youth and take our space. Felix also says there's a big conflict between the students at the university and colleges. Students are being expelled aimlessly and no one is standing up for them simply because the student leadership are as good as dead, very voiceless. Michael says, we surely don't need conventions. They are just for lecturing, then nothing more. Every individual should take a personal challenge to understand what he or she is and wants to be, and then act. Martin Duati says, rightly themed and properly structured national and county conventions are important vehicles of articulating collective youth voices as well as sharing knowledge amongst the youth. Judith Chepkoech says the youth have capacity to engage in civil spaces, however, majority perceive it as not being their business. Therefore, their participation becomes very low. Felix, again, we have the capacity. He's talking about youth. We just need to change our attitude and push ourselves into spaces where decisions are made. We have to view our involvement in governance as a solution to our problems in society at large. There will never be us without us. Fazul says, with good strategy and good work plan to enlighten the youth, with a good work plan, youth can be enlightened and can be very aggressive on matters of politics, tenders, and governance. Lastly, Sylvia, I think I had read hers. Yes, that's it from the online people online, but there's someone here by the name of Kaluma, who I see his hand is up. So Kaluma, if you can hear me, kindly unmute your mic.
Thank you. I just want to make a brief commentary on the same that governments all over have never worked voluntarily, and it takes the collective voice of the people, in this case the youth, to make things happen. If you look like at the case of Makueni, to come up with the youth policy, we had to pressurize the government to act. So I would urge also every other youth who is here and elsewhere, from their own counties, let's push these people to act. If we don't, they'll just sit back and think we are comfortable and not deliver anything. Thank you.
Kaluma, thank you for your comment. So that's it from the online space. Josiah, you can.
Thank you so much for your engagement. Thank you so much for your time. But as I hand over this mic, then one of the critical questions is that what role do you play as a youth within the spaces that you are in to make your country better? Because even as we talk about the things that affect us as challenges, one of the critical things is that what solution do you have for them and how do you stand up? Theodosia and Ken, one thing as we wind up this conversation that I want you to talk about as we home in, the follow-up plan. We can plan and put everything in perspective, then how are we going to ensure that this thing is followed up, especially from the institutional perspective. So I get back this mic to Grace so that then we can get this. Thank you so much for your time and I appreciate all your engagement. Asanteni.
I think Josiah deserves a better clap than that. Asante sana, Josiah. So for me, will be just to invite Ken and Theodosia to just give us a way forward. So we've met and we've made the discussion. So what's next, right? Yes, so I can see Theodosia is not in the room. So Ken, the stage is yours.
Unfortunately, I was not recording the responsibility. But I think the most important thing is, do we have an idea of what we are supposed to be doing next? That is the question. The entire discussion was about, this is the issue, this is the office to go to, and we have even given specific responsibility, unless the ones that we never agreed on. So I would like to commit a Siasa place and the National Youth Bunge Association, that we would be willing to follow up with the respective institutions that have been given responsibility to just ensure that something happens. But I think follow-up or the advocacy around these issues is on you who are here. The reason why you are invited to this meeting is not because you are just invited, but it is because of the role that you have been playing in the past, and we would like to come together and do the same thing together. So therefore, I would like to ask in this room, we have how many political parties? Political parties, please stand up. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Where are the rest? There are supposed to be 11. Or to those who see political. Oh. Yes. Which party? And one of the things that I was thinking as I was coming here was, okay, we have seen you, so just sit down. Okay. No, don't go out. Okay. So one of the things that I know is very critical. We have talked about youth unemployment, and we have talked about AGPO. Right? Have we talked about AGPO? Some people are so busy on their phones. Yes. Inaitwanga AGPO. Hii shida yetu ni hii sector. So have we talked about the 30%? Have we talked about it? Political parties in this room, do you have MCS? Do we have MCS? And you are the political parties leading them. Me, I would like to give you one assignment, and I would like it to be in the report as a responsibility to political parties, that we need to raise substantive motion asking each and every county assembly of the 5 political parties on the extent to which they have implemented that. And I would like us to have 2 questions only. Number 1, how they performed. And number 2, list of all those who got those tenders. Number 1, and I think we need to follow you and ask you based on that. Number 1, the extent to which they have implemented the AGPO or the 30% for youth, women, minority, and people living with disability. And then number 2, the list. If all of them raise that question, that is when we will start talking about solving the youth problem. Because if you have sponsored them to the county assembly and they cannot defend the youth, and especially those who are nominated to defend the youth, then we are doing so badly. I have also seen some of responsibility passed out to Siasa Place and NYBA. We will take up our responsibility. National youth serving organizations, the leadership is here. We will push you. Finally, because I want President now to close. Finally, we will be having this meeting. Okay, not this meeting. We'll be having another meeting in the course of this month. But one of the things we would like, one of the things that we would be working on is discussing the same things, but more online, such that we are able to follow through what we have been discussing. So in that regard, I would ask the same parties. We have them. Where is NAC Kenya? Oh, NAC Kenya. The same parties. There are some of the things that will require attention of the party leaders. Kindly, can you book a meeting for us with the party leaders? So that, and that day, the responsibility I would like to give you is that you will just present that report in our presence. Are we able to do that? Ukweli party? Yes, I'm asking, are you able to organize a meeting for us with the party leader? No, don't ask question. I'm the one who is on the floor. And then we have NAC. Yeah, NAC Kenya. Ford Kenya, you even got a new MP. So, yes, the thing is, can you organize a meeting with the party leader to present this report, and ours will only to come and sit here, you present the report, and we will defend you if they ask questions. That is where we need to go, because some of these things that needs legal mambo na legislation huko, we cannot do them in this boardroom. We must only do it in your boardroom where they are convinced and raise that question in parliament and others, because we were targeting 11 parties that we are working with. So if we get 11 parties, probably we have 11 or 30 MPs. And if these people buy the idea and see the sense, we will move from where we are to the next. And that is the whole story about you being in this place. So thank you so much. I think I would encourage that so that I also know you as a person. Yeah, because my fear is Grace might kill me for not taking two time, but let me violate.
So the thing is this, or rather my plea question comment would be, political parties don't receive funding except two major political parties, right? And so my proposal was that if we could begin by having the MCAs that have been nominated or elected to represent young people, are we able to organize a forum, of course, in conjunction with Siasa Place, where we can then get them to understand? Because before we get to the point, we need to start from a point of having them understanding this and where they're coming from, so they can sell the idea to their colleagues.
Thank you so much. That's also a brilliant idea. My worry is Siasa Place will not be able to support. If you can support, we will be present and we will defend it. And then my second worry is, as at the point where we are as a country, if you invite 30 MCAs, if you get 10, you're lucky. But if the party calls them and tell them this is the direction they will follow. So okay, we support if there is any initiative that you can do as a party to push for this report to be implemented. We will support it. My only worry or my only reservation is where we are saying we have to put in resources, while the resources that we have are already earmarked for certain things, which might not be able to be diverted. So when the idea was on the youth wing of political parties, is also to strengthen your capacity to start negotiating. You don't live when you are past youth and then you start now saying, but I was in the youth wing, you people just left me, and I'm just young, I don't have money. No, this is the time you say, because all of you who came from the party were sent by the party. And we were very deliberate when we were calling you. We communicated to the party. It's the party who gave you direction. Nobody came on their own behalf here. Cynthia. So we were just trying to make a leeway for you to go back. And a simple strategy, let me give you a simple strategy, is that we will brand this report nicely, and especially for political parties. Even if you want is to brand it and put it in a nice way, print it, then you say you want to meet the party leader to discuss that report. Let him create time. Let her create time. And then they will give you a chance and you say, this report has 1, 2, 3, and we would like we would like you to push for us this 1, 2, 3. As a party leader, please rein on our members in parliament. So if they buy the idea, we will succeed. If they don't buy idea, we will struggle. We will still succeed, but we will struggle because we never fail. I don't know if I have managed to address your concerns, comment. Yeah, but I would urge that if we have ideas, please let's not keep them. Let's share them and see we can panel beat them and see what we can do with them, just to ensure that we are able to achieve some of these things that we have identified. At this point, I would like to invite President Todosia. Why don't you stand up? Okay, no, that was a joke. Karibu sana, President.
Asante. Basi asante sana Ken and the entire team present. Kwa wale wengine wanajui naitwa Richard Ruto Todosia. Yeye unasikia ananiita president, mimi ni president wa National Youth Bunge Association. It's an organization that has umbrella body. It's an umbrella body of CBOs in counties calling themselves bunges. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for committing your time to come here and look into what we discussed in Kisumu. I'm also grateful for Siasa Place and also the program sets that has enabled us to converge here, and we have interacted, we have discussed a lot. So moving forward, I would say that what we have been given as NIBA will be able to follow up and ensure that in the next meeting we do some progress. And I'm also hoping that the other teams that have been giving some commitments, undertakings, they will also fast track. One parting word to youths that I would wish to say to youth is that for a long time, we've been generalizing our issues. We don't pinpoint directly what is it. So when we go into a forum or when you hear people talking about BBI or whatever, they just say youth issues have not been talked. So every time you confront the governor, unasema tu vitu zetu, kila mtu anasema, so we go very general. So that's why some people say, ni nini hiyo? What is it? So I will wish that moving forward, youth, let's learn to be specific. Let's define our issues. Is it unemployment? Is it a lack of capital? So don't just talk of generalization in a forum without mentioning what is it. So I think if we move in that direction, even the duty bearers, the administrators, and anybody will be able to pick what you have said and capture in a report and say, okay, these guys said they want this and this, but not that they said they want youth issues. Youth issues are very many. Because if you just think of youth issues, you come in a mock. It's like people demonstrating. Ni kama watu wanafanya maandamano. Sasa hata huwezi sikia ni nini wanasema. So that's what I will say to you, that let's be very specific, even in this forthcoming debate on BBI. Let's be very deliberate on some of the issues, the contents, and let's not confuse the contents of BBI versus the global recession that we are having right now, so that we confuse with the economy issues and many. I have seen there's a lot of confusion. So, but I will say that let's look at what is it. The issue of 7 years grace period, is it practical? Is it or just things that will be thrown? The issue of youth commission, ask, is it like the NYC way, or which way is it? Is it now going? Is it that now that it's in the constitution, will there be some seriousness on it? Ama tu itakuwa the same, because even NYC ilikuwa inasemekana itakuwa serious kwa sababu sasa ni act of parliament. Hata hiyo katiba inaweza kuwa hivyo. So those are some of the serious issues that we as youth leaders here, I know you are leaders when you are here, when you go home, msipoteze vijana wetu, mimi nawaomba sana. Waambie hawa tusome what is inside it. Yeah, I was taking an example of people, a leader akichukua mfano ya contents ina chupa, ukishake hivi ile bovu, sasa ile ndio anaambia watu. Kama sisi Pokota, I was telling you that if somebody wants to mislead them, he can tell them hii kitu ni mbaya, kila mtu ataama hapa. Yeah? How bad is this? Asemi ile contents, real contents. So even you, the youth now, I am cautioning you against saying things that are outside what is inside it. Two, as I finish, I will also want to not to analyze on the basis of imaginations the document. Unapata mtu anasema iko vitu iko ndani ambaye haiko. Inaweza kuwa kuna vitu imefichwa. Hakuna kitu inafichwa in anything that has been published. Any law that has been published. So usishinde ukiambia grandmothers wetu kwamba iko maneno ndani ambayo imefichwa. Gani useme? Because you are a leader. Tell them exactly what is inside it. But if you keep on saying there's some things and imefichwa na huru, wesi jua nini bwana wewe umesoma. So wewe angalia na uambie watu exactly what's inside. So namalizia nikisema tuendelea kwa pamoja. We'll continue working together as leaders, as young leaders, and let's reform the youth leadership. Yes, in the past, it was the way Madam was saying that burn it down, because if the regime is not responsive, then you can apply that route. But if it's responsive sometimes, then you make it look like it's a youths are partners, stakeholders, people who bring in solutions to the table, but not people who just throw stones and like pushing and all that. So, and for those many remarks, I will say that we will continue in the next meeting. Tutakutana. Nilipenda leo sana hii engagement. Na kumbe watu wachache wanaweza hata hii parliament ya watu 650 ndio wamesema. Sijui watu watadebate namna gani, because I've seen right now here how people were coming up with issues, meaning that if we have sizable conventions or forums, whichever you may call, then there will be, the product will also be good, because people can be able to contribute meaningfully. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki. Thank you.
Thank you, Todosia and Ken, and everyone for being here, and also for everyone who is joining us on Zoom. Asanteni sana, and those of you who are watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. We've come to the end of the forum today, and I will ask my guys there to end the stream. So on behalf of Siasa Place, thank you for everyone who is watching this, and see you soon for another forum that's going to be similar or not similar to this in the coming weeks. Are we done?